Welcome to Focus on Business, a podcast show for photographers with me, your host, Jane Goodrich. I'm talking to successful photographers so you can learn from our experiences and have the business of your dreams. So join us and let's focus on business. Hi, welcome to today's episode of Focus on Business. And I am really excited because we have the fantastic Renee Bowen on, and I'm English, and so hopefully I didn't mispronounce your name, but I don't think I did. So welcome, Renee.
No, that's exactly it, Renee Bowen. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't heard of Renee, you probably should have, but she's such a fantastic senior photographer. She also does headshots of branding, portraits, and a fantastic educator for creative entrepreneurs. And I'm just so excited to have you on the show. So today, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, tell our audience a little bit more about yourself, like where you're from and what got you into photography. I just want to hear a little bit more about your story.
Yeah, so I am originally from Louisiana, born and raised Louisiana, and I've lived now in LA, so the suburbs of Los Angeles, since 1995. But I'm still a Southern girl at heart. I kind of fell into photography. It was not my intention to become a photographer. I sort of grew up around it. My dad was always shooting film and like doing stuff, in the bathroom, darkroom when I was a kid. But I never really thought, it would be something I was really interested in. I went to college, got my degree in psychology, had all these plans of pursuing a master's and probably a PhD and becoming a therapist. That was my goal. And then I moved to Los Angeles when I was 25 on a whim. It was one of those what am I doing with my life moments? And I got in my car, literally. And it changed my life. I literally just had this moment of, I need to leave. I need to go experience some life. And I had a little bit of experience in LA. I had come to UCLA for summer school once. So I had a little bit of point of reference, basically. I was like, oh, I love LA. I'm just going to move there for a little while. I was 25. I was, not attached to anything. Let's just do that now. And I'm really glad that I did. It sort of set me off on a whole new course. I ended up coming here, meeting my now husband, who I'm still with. We have 3 grown children. And it was through those courses of events that I sort of fell into photography. We started having kids, and my father-in-law gave me my first actual digital camera, because I had film cameras. I had always had a camera. I was always that person taking pictures of all my friends and all the things, even if it was just a disposable camera. I always had it, and I started taking pictures of my kids. That's kind of how I just started. My older son, who is now 25, has autism, and he didn't speak until he's almost 5. So I always had a camera in his face, and I was always just what's going on there? And so he became my muse, basically. And people started asking me well, you're kind of good at this. How do you know how to do this? And I was like, I don't know. I just do. And so then I started taking headshots because my husband's an actor. So that was, a dream for him, having a photographer basically, in his back pocket to take photos at any time. So I started taking pictures of his friends. And then within 3 years of just dabbling with it part-time as a new mom, because I had 3 kids under the age of 2. I had twins. So I was kind of in the trenches. And I always say photography is kind of what saved me, because I was falling into a big identity crisis, a depression. I had postpartum. We had so many kids so quickly, and we didn't really plan to do that, right? So it was oh, we'll have another one. And then, oh, here's 2 more. So
Right.
it was just a lot and really hard, in those first days. So having photography as sort of first my hobby was really, really important. And then I started realizing, oh, I could probably make a living at this. And that's when it started that, opened up that can of worms of, oh, well, now I have to actually learn how to run a business. And back in those days, we didn't really have a lot of resources. It was the early days of YouTube. You couldn't really find anybody to mentor you. I even would reach out to people and they would just shut me down. no, I'm not going to tell you my secrets.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of one of the reasons why I do what I do now, because it was so hard for me to find that.
And when was that back? Your kids are grown now. So like
2005,
Yeah.
2006, I was really like, just getting my feet wet in the business. And then 2007, 2008 is when I decided I want to be a senior photographer, because no one was doing that where I lived, like no one. And I had seen some people doing that in the Midwest. And obviously I'm from the South, so that's kind of a thing down there too. But no one was doing like these experience sessions where you take, your client out and do hair and makeup. And it was very much not a thing here. And I live in Southern California. So I was like, this is ridiculous. We have perfect year-round weather. We have these gorgeous locations. Why not?
Why?
So I kind of started it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because in my area, I'm just outside of New York, and it's not a thing. It's really not a thing. I got my photographer friends together, and we were like all posting senior photography. We're like, we're all trying to like send the email blast and post like, I'm like, look, if we all do this, we get like a 17-year-old on a, let's gather those images that we have. Let's do some model. It didn't take off. And you'd think, because all these local area photographers, and, you talk to someone and they're like, you mean like the yearbook photos? And I'm like, no, it's senior. And I love that age. So, maybe I didn't do it how you did it. So I failed our area. But, it's coming, but it may be a lot slower. But yeah, I love.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I have people, I've coached people in your neck of the woods and like New York, New Jersey, East Coast. It's there, but it is, and that's why I tell them, I just finished up a coaching program with this couple from New Hampshire, and they are so primed to absolutely kill it, because it like, and I always say, if it's not a thing, it's a great opportunity for you to make it, because you're going to stand out. But you gotta be different. And that's really kind of, I think, what also, though, let me just say, for people listening, this was the early days of Facebook. So it wasn't hard. It wasn't that hard for me to get my work out there. And now it is a very different thing on social. So I will say that, I had that on my side. Yes, I was doing something different, and I had a very clear vision of how different I wanted it to look. I mean, no one was really doing lifestyle portraits of high school seniors. No one. And I was like, well, I took girls out to a cafe and shot them at a cafe, and it looked like they were in a magazine. And so that's why it was it's different. You have to kind of be different. But yeah, I did have social media on my side.
That's interesting. So if anyone's listening to this and they're like, well, no one does senior portraits in my area, I highly recommend reaching out to Renee because I think that if it's something that you're really passionate about, and say you were in an area that, I had a friend, she'd moved from Florida, and she's like, that was my whole business. Now I'm in New York and there's nothing here. And so how you can get into it would be, it would probably save us a lot of time. So, but yeah, definitely reach out to you. But if you were to travel back, I mean, you're similar to me. I mean, I started part-time, 2009, a little bit before. I mean, I've always had a camera in my hand too, but my older sister actually also was a photographer, and the darkroom bathroom was funny. She actually had a darkroom, but she used the bath to process, and it was like a Victorian bath, and it had this original enamel on it. My mother went crazy because it got ruined, and maybe all those chemicals in the bath I'm just thinking about it now, but it's funny. But I think it's a little different. It was almost different. There wasn't enough information, so you kind of had to go kind of old school of I'm going to search how to start a business. But now there's also a little bit too much information. So you have to make sure that you're finding someone that's been in business for 20 years, 10 years at least, that has gone through the seasons of a recession, gone through seasons of, different social medias coming and going, and how to have a sustainable business. So that's always my advice, because people are like, well, you started, when it wasn't. I was like, but it was almost harder, but almost easier. Right.
Yeah.
In different ways. Now there's great information on YouTube, but there's also a lot of bad information on YouTube. So, so figuring it out is harder for newer photographers.
Yeah.
But if you were to, I mean, we always have our own journeys, but if you were to travel back in time and tell yourself something, like tap on the shoulder and be like, hey, do this instead of that, would there be something specific that you would tell yourself?
Well, probably a lot. Yeah, I mean, I definitely did wait too long to outsource. I will say that. So that's one of the big things that I'm a big proponent of. It's like, what do you not love to do and what's taking all your time? Okay, you're going to need to give that away. But you also need to be profitable to do that. So, raising prices higher, having, I'm just like everybody, probably in this space, lots of creatives, photographers, we have this worth issue, right? When we start having to I have to make money at this. Okay, well, that means you actually have to not just know your numbers. That's definitely important, like knowing the business parts of it, but also having that, it's not just confidence. That's part of it, but being able to look at the reasons why you might be having these money issues, right? Because we all have them. And that's one of the reasons that propelled me later on to get certified in life coaching. I mean, I was always, I already had a degree in psychology. So I always say that that's sort of my first love. I always wanted to work with people. And even as a photographer, I always felt like it was a people job more than anything else.
Completely a people job. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to be good with people if you're a portrait photographer, and especially working with teenagers. Okay, teenagers and their moms, I could write a book, and I literally think I might actually, because there are so many stories and things that over the years that I've loved and also that have made me really sad. But it's very interesting to me to be an observer of that human connection. And I feel working with teenagers, we have to be really connected to them. We have to exude the confidence so that they mirror it back to us. And it's been such a really fun journey for me, even personally, because it did force me to look at, why do you not feel worthy enough to charge what you need to be charging, right? And so I feel like that's probably one of the things that I wish I would have maybe worked on sooner, because it did take me a little while, to figure that out. But again, I didn't have the resources that we do. And you're right, there's a lot. There's too much, right? So you do have to make sure you're vetting the people. And you don't know the underside of their business. I promise you guys, some of the people out there that you think are killing it, and like you, Jane, you probably have seen the under the hood of a lot of photography businesses.
Right.
They're not doing as well as you think they are.
Right.
So,
and realistically, you can do. So it's funny, I actually, in England, you sort of have to choose your degree when you're 16 or something. You could change. And my older sister had said, just do business because you can kind of do anything. And I've really loved psychology. And I wanted to actually change degrees, but that means I would have had to start again. And I'm a twin. So I had to all right, no, I'm not finishing a year later than it. So but I've always loved psychology too. And I do think there's actually something in that. But I have a business degree and I have an MBA, right? So my numbers I can calculate it. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's really easy. But but I think if you know your numbers, it sort of is oh, I'm not charging $1,000 a photo shoot. My business is, and I'm getting paid X. And then you're like, okay, what are you complaining to me about? I'm making $200 and I'm working 10 hours on this. I'm making $20 an hour. And by the way, they're just paying that in McDonald's. So even just, I feel sometimes if you just know your numbers, it gives you the confidence to actually just explain it. But we also are creative, so we don't want to explain numbers to people. But I think there's a green light. As soon as someone asks me, why did your prices go up? All right, I'll tell you why my prices went up. Because you're asking about it. I'm not afraid. The transparency of talking about numbers, and we can get into a whole thing of the psychology of it, but I think it's I think we just, as creative people, we are business owners, and we're not just creatives. And if we treat it like a business, people will treat us like businesses and pay for it. The psychology part, and you just actually made me think of something really interesting on I've always joked, because I'm a family and newborn photographer, when people are like, oh my gosh, you're so good with kids. I mean, I will literally talk to the children before I talk to the parents. Like, I'm like, that's number one. The kids need to feel heard. But it's psychology. I think my shoots are 80% child psychology and knowing psychology and 20% photography, because otherwise I'm not going to get that personality.
Yeah.
But what I realized is, and over the years, I've seen a lot of negative things happen with new moms and the grandparents, and, and the distrust of grandparents. But then what I saw through COVID, there was a period where you couldn't be around a grandparent. So your mom couldn't be there with you. And the shift went to be like, I now appreciate my parent. And I was like, you know what? Like, just the evolution of what you see. And, they're like, if you take it for granted, the people who are taking it for granted that like someone's mom's going to help, I'm like, take your mom's help. Like, I don't care if she feeds her ice cream at 10:30 in the morning. Who cares? Just take it. And so I think COVID did make us really kind of like have a little bit of like appreciation for that. So, but you see a lot. You really do see a lot as a portrait photographer. So
yes, you do.
Yeah. So you've been in LA for a while, and if you had to move your business, what would the first thing that you would do? You're like, no, I'm not moving LA. I love it. Not going.
No,
hypothetically.
No, and honestly, like, it's a very common thing. People have to move all the time. I've had lots of coaching students, whether it's my groups or one-on-one, who have had to move, whether, usually for their spouse or for family reasons or whatever. It's a thing. And you really do want to set your business up to have that freedom. I feel like, you never know what life is going to throw at you. And if you are really smart about it, you can just pick up and move. I mean, yes, there's some things that you want to put in place. But the first thing that I always say is, if you really know, and this is one of the first things that I do with people, is we go really super deep into your purpose, and not just like what your purpose is in photography. I'm talking about like the psychological reason that you are here on planet Earth. Very much in line with what Simon Sinek talks about, like find your why.
Your why.
People do not buy what you do. They buy why you do it, especially if you are a boutique full service photographer and you're charging more for this. You really do need to express that value in pretty much everything that you do, so that you're not constantly having to tell people why you are so expensive, quote unquote. Right? So I definitely think that you need to know that first, right? Like, anybody needs to know that. Like, what is your true purpose? What are you about, right? Because once you have that really clear sense of your purpose, you can express it in many different ways, not just in the way that you run your business. But that is a very important piece of this puzzle. So once you know that, you can kind of move anywhere. The other part of it is that if you know your client, who is that target client? And it might be a little different based on your region, right? Like we were talking about before, if senior portraits are not necessarily a thing where you're moving, you may have to, shift that mindset just a little bit and get a little bit deeper into the minutia of like who that target client is and their parent. And that's the other thing about being a senior photographer, is that we have two target clients. We have the parent and we have the teenager. And if you're not marketing to the teenager these days, you're going to lose that client because the parents are letting them call the shots. So you have to be able to talk to that teenager, even if you're in your 50s. And I have people tell me that all the time, like, I don't know how to connect with teenagers. I'm like, yes, you do. You're just, that's just a mindset shift. So knowing who you are, what you're about, and then knowing your target client, those two things, once those two things are in place, you can pick up and move anywhere. And so the first thing that I would do is I would get into my community and find out, where are my clients? Where are they physically? What are they about? What are they doing? And how can I get in front of them? And how can I leverage the help of other businesses to do that?
Yeah, I love that, because you have to find out who you build these relationships too. Like if you build the relationships in terms of like, the music studio that, serves all the local families and people are coming from around here. I always use that as an example because that's what, I ended up with. But I think it's interesting in terms of you have two clients. Like, I have a question for you. This is just side noting, but like when you first started, did you have two clients or did you just have the parents?
It was mainly the parents. I was shooting millennials. It's a whole different generation. So yes, but here's the thing. I do want to say that from the get-go, I've always been teen-centric. And I think that's because, I mean, like, even when I was going to school for psychology, my intention was to work with teenagers. Like, I always wanted to work with that age group. I was that mom who was like, I can't wait for my kids to be teenagers. Like, I loved having teenagers and a house full of them. Like, that was more fun to me than the toddler years. I will tell you that. So, you know what I mean? Like, I had to like get real with myself about that. Yes, I loved being a mom, but that's why I don't work with little kids and newborns. It's not my jam.
Right.
And I know that. And so I always felt drawn to teenagers. I always felt like I could connect with them. I always wanted to connect with them. So even in the very beginning of my business, when I was marketing to the parents to do this for their kid, I still was very focused on that teen client and really trying to find out what they wanted. And I think that's probably one of the other reasons why my business sort of took off so quickly, because, you know, pair that with the social media, I was able to give them what they wanted, basically.
Yeah.
You know, and very much, and especially now, the images that the client, like the parent wants versus what the teenager wants, sometimes are very, very different. And we have to be giving them both if we want to make good sales.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because, well, one, I'm going to come to you and my daughter just turned 9. So I'm going to be like, all right, maybe life coaching with Renee for teenagers. I might.
I actually would love, like, that's one of my little future dreams. Like, I'm a life coach for, you know, photographers, creatives, and I love it. But there is a part of me that really wants to work with teenagers in that way because, yeah.
What are you about life coach for photographers with teenage kids?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes.
There's a lot of us. There's a lot of us that, well, she's 9 now. But yeah, it's funny because I actually find I love photographing newborns. I found the baby stage so boring. I was like, this is boring. It's repetitive. Oh, you didn't find it boring because you had 3 under 2. But I was like, I have 1. And, you know, blessed to have her. But like, that was really boring. And I love I love to see how they grow. And I love actually age. So it'd be interesting to see her as a teenager. But yeah, no, I hear I hear stories, but I don't think I would have a teenager. But, well, one, actually, it made me think of when I'm photographing families and newborns, like my style and what parents want are not what the grandparents will buy a framed picture of, right? Mm-hmm. I've started out, I had all this documentary, everyone's looking at the baby, they're looking at this, and then, you know, the grandparents are annoyed. Why'd you go to that photographer? No one's looking at the camera. And they're the ones that spend the money, like, you know, or, you know, what I tried to do is sort of eliminate any arguments. Let's do the grandparent shot. Everyone's smiling at the camera, even if the clients don't necessarily want it. Yes, the one the grandparents want. And that's the one they want framed on their mantelpiece. And so, yeah, we all kind of even have a couple of clients who made me think that. I was like, kind of do it the other day. So, yeah. So how do you, I mean, you talk about, you know, outsourcing sooner. So that like helps like the work-life balance. You're in LA. So we talked about this a little bit before we hopped on of seasonality. I hear a lot from senior photographers of that so seasonal. I'm really busy at this time of year. Like, how have you coped with seasonality or helped de-seasonalize your business almost?
Yeah, I am a little fortunate in that respect because I live where I live. I can shoot year round. And I mean, I have a studio, but my senior clients typically don't want that vibe. Sometimes they do. And sometimes you do like a mix of both. But, you know, 9 times out of 10, I am out on a hiking trail or the beach. Like later today, I have a session out in Malibu. So, you know, I can do that year round. Yes, January and February, we're probably going to get some rain and, you know, we may have to reschedule. This year it's been really rainy. But for the most part, my business isn't really seasonal. I'm pretty much year round and I kind of structure it that way. However, I do like to book myself out. I like to, you know, project out. So there's certain things that I will do in spring, like say for now, that will get me booked up with next year's class. So class of 2025. So that I am spaced out and so that I can know like what my calendar is going to look like. I don't want to be everybody wants September and October here, right? And that's usually the case anywhere because it's fall and it's the best weather. Depends on, it depends because Arizona, like you can't even shoot in the summer, right? Too hot. Florida, same way. So I have a lot of coaching students in all of these parts of the country. And for most of them, it is seasonal. So for that, I say, first of all, you have to plan. That's another one big reason for getting really good with your money and knowing where it's going and budgeting for that. Like you've got to know if you are not going to be shooting between, late November and like March. April sometimes, you have to make sure, first of all, are you going to diversify? Are you going to shoot something else? Are you going to do headshots? Are you going to do branding? Are you going to do something else that you can actually make some money? Or are you going to make all your money in like 7 months, 6 or 7 months? And if that's the case, then you have to plan accordingly so that you're not freaking out, that you're not making money. Yeah. So that's a really big factor, factor. Yeah.
I love that. I think you have to either plan for it, not saying that you can't just do it. But newborns are less seasonal than most, we're pretty much born year round babies, but it was still seasonal. So I, sort of like baseline newborns, then I have families, everyone wants fall. I got really bored of those leaves, really bored. And I ended up sort of hating a season because I was so busy. But what I started doing was, because I got a lot of repeat clients. I'm like, okay, well, last year you did fall. Why don't we do spring? How about we do a summer shoot? Like you can bring them up into deseasonalizing it. But I also, but no one's going to do anything in January and February in New York. So you know what's popular? Headshots. People need new jobs. They want LinkedIn. So I started a separate company to do headshots. And I think that that's how we have to think of it. It's not that you can't make money. It is a seasonal business. So like we have to figure out a way, which you're in an area, but I also think that you're planning so far in advance.
Yeah.
Like for following year being like, okay, well, this is when your shoot is. And they know, you also have to create a sense of scarcity, right?
Yes.
It's marketing, right? So like, it's like, okay, well, I'll take June. I'm not, be that picky about a September shoot, so that's another thing is like, I think a lot of people don't do is sort of create the scarcity. I mean, mine was when my daughter was born, I was like, I'm not taking on new clients because in my head during the fall season, because they take a lot out of you mentally, you're like, oh,
yeah.
So I was like, nope, everyone, I'm sorry, you have to, in order to get on my fall calendar, you have to be a client. And granted, I've been doing this for eons, right? So have a big client base. Someone booked me in February for an in-home shoot to get on the fall calendar. I was like, that's crazy. I'm not that good. But it created a sense of scarcity. So I was like, this might work. Maybe the photographer should try it. So I tell people to try and create that. But mine wasn't false. Like I was already had, max. So I was like, I can't do this anymore. But speaking of funny shoots, like you must have some funny ones with the teenagers. Like talk about the you bring this up. It's like a funny shoot, but it's almost like what did you happen? Why did this happen? Like you would not believe what happened on my shoot today. Do you have had any of those moments? Or
I mean, I've had a bunch. You as much as you plan for, sometimes, especially when you're out of location, you can't really plan for everything. You can try. But, I'm really big on prepping my clients, especially the teenagers. Like, the moms really have to also be on board because, the teenager's not going to remember to bring all the things. But I have a lot of like prep that I work. I mean, I provide a pretty high touch experience. So, people are spending a lot of money with me. They're going to get a lot of hand holding, even if it's digital, hand holding and I'm not physically doing it. So I have systems and processes that help me with that. But even then, as many times as you remind someone, bring the right color underwear or, that kind of stuff, right? So, you've got hot pink undies under a white dress. I'm like, babes, that's not going to work. So, there was one time that I had to actually give a girl my bra. Literally in the middle of the shoot, we had to swap bras because she had on like a hot purple or something. And she really wanted this little sundress and it just wasn't working. I'm like, you need a nude bra, which I had on. And I was like, okay, we're just going to trade. Thank God it worked. But yeah, my makeup artist, I've been working with the same makeup artist for about 14 years. And she was just dying laughing. She's like, oh my God, that takes the cake. She's like, I've seen some crazy stuff, but that was the funniest. That was, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, and then you're like, should I just invest in some nude bras?
Yes.
People.
Well, that's actually, yeah. So, I mean, I always have like little stickies, like in my car for girls, and I try and have some stuff. But after that, I was like, oh, okay, I am going to actually have nude bras, like in 3 different sizes in my little bag that stays in my car. And now I have them. And socks and even like extra underwear. I'm not even joking. Like I've had to do that because over the years you learn. That's kind of how you learn. You learn like, oh God, like I didn't even think that this person wouldn't have that. So yeah, I added to my little arsenal, my shoot.
I had this one. You always end up with this one shoot where you're like, oh, why didn't I do that? And so I had a new mom and she was exhausted. She had 3 kids and she comes in, she's wearing like everyone else is dressed gorgeous and she isn't. She's dressed in this t-shirt that's too big for her. Like you don't feel great right after you've given birth. Nothing fits.
No,
it's just like luckily I had something. I think I had like a nicer version of like what I wear, white, and I was like, can you just wear this because it was shiny t-shirt that she had on, and so then I actually just got a few different like plain white tops, and even I had a dad that showed up in it's funny, I photographed him for the years, but this is the 4th kid and he's just like, come on, like he's just, I was like, dude, why are you wearing a hoodie and why are you wearing a hoodie? Everyone else is in white, everyone looks gorgeous, but I had a white long sleeve t-shirt like that he just put on. I was like, here you go. But you learn over the years, right, to have
you do
little, but you wouldn't think that you'd need an extra bra.
Right. I know.
Anyway, so if you were to, like, I'm sure you give so much advice on your coaching and everything, but if someone was to start out thinking, hey, I want to be a photographer, what would be the first thing that you would tell them to do?
Well, I would definitely tell them to dig into that purpose work that I'm talking about, like really finding your why, in addition to understanding your business. Like, realize now that if you are wanting to, become a photographer, that means you're going to be charging for your services. So realize now that you're in sales. Just accept the fact that you're in sales and get really good at sales because you are selling something. And a lot of people just really don't like the word sales. There's a lot of negative connotation about it, but you have to find out what that means for you and realize that, when people are coming to you for a service that you're doing, like there's so many photographers that I coach and I see out in the world in various groups who are they feel very guilty for charging people. And I'm like, they came to you for this service. They sought you out. They actually said, hey, I want to pay you for this. And then they're like, oh, but I feel so guilty charging that. I'm like, I'm sorry, no. So that's why I include so much mindset work in what I do, because I can teach you exactly what to do. I can give you the whole blueprint and like do A to Z. Okay. All the things, the templates, everything. And I do that in my educational vault that I give people when they sign up for coaching with me, but it will not matter if you are still swimming in this uncertainty in your head and imposter syndrome and all of those limiting beliefs, right? You've got to work on that stuff if you want to be successful at anything and if you want to have a happy life. Like, really, I feel like those things are triggers. Like if you are drawn to this business and it is bringing up all of this stuff of like, oh my God, now I have to sell. Oh my God. No. Well, first of all, I really believe that you were drawn to this for a reason. Like, I really am a big believer in that. So that's a fantastic opportunity for you to lean into that and go, I wonder what's in there for me to learn. Because obviously your higher self wants you to learn this. And the sooner you do, the happier you're going to be. And the happier you are, the better business you're going to run, because it's a reflection of what's going on in your head.
Yeah,
100%.
And it's also not necessarily like, I like to think of like, okay, well, say you're working 9 to 5. Would you say to your boss, oh, please don't pay me?
Right.
Oh, no, don't pay me. I don't deserve, like, it's a completely different thing. Yes. And I think I love the fact that you do so much mindset work, because I think also with us is we tend to have like, our name, is it? You know, we're so close to it. Like Jane Goodrich Photography.
It's just us.
Okay. It's us. But if I'm like, actually, take Jane Goodrich Photography as a business is charging, not Jane Goodrich. Because Jane Goodrich's business has a lot of costs, and she's paying Jane Goodrich to photograph. And also I say, look, if you got sick and you had to pay somebody to do what you do, you know,
great point.
What would it take to do your accounting, to do this, to do that, And then sometimes it clicks, but also it clicks on many levels. People have to do a lot of the work, but sometimes I'm very like data driven, numbers driven, and that clicks for me. But other people, it's more like, yeah, I get what you're saying, Jane, but it's still not working. Sometimes, I remember one of my favorite things was I was talking to someone and she had the daughter on her hand, like, you know, she was like a toddler. I said, okay, well, just tell her she just doesn't have to charge anything for her business when she starts it. And she went,
yeah,
mad. I was like, no, you're just teaching her. You're
exactly.
just teaching her it's okay to not charge and not to feel worth it. And then, honestly, that motivated her more than anything. Like that night, she raised the prices. It's just like slightly mindset. What am I teaching my child? Like, oh, my daughter. So
absolutely,
there's so much stuff going on in, you know, people's heads, but we really you need to charge. You're giving a service. You need to make money. Like,
yeah. And it's so hard for some people because they're super, super stuck in the programming. And we're all programmed against our will as kids. Like, you know, that was our job, was to just learn. And then unfortunately, some things got in there into our unconscious mind. And most people, the unconscious mind is running the show 90% of the time. 90%. That is a statistic. Like, yeah, that's your programming running the show. And it's like, okay, do you want to really live the rest of your life like that? Like, do you really want to just be a victim, basically, to all of that stuff that's probably not even yours? Like, you just picked it up along the way and it got stuck in there. And your unconscious mind, its only job is just to keep you safe. That's it. It's just trying to keep you safe and alive. And so if you just look at it like that and realize that, oh, I can make a different choice and I can actually rewire this. And people think it takes forever. But honestly, I've seen people make changes like you just said, like that night she changed the prices. It can click so fast for some people, but you have to figure out what's going to work for you and then do it.
Yeah. And I think the doing it part is really hard. And I'll give everybody a bit of a break. Is like, you know, as I see it a lot more with female entrepreneurs than men. I see like the statistic is, you know, for what I've seen is, you know, after 3 months, men are charging profitable rates. Oh yeah, 3 years. Why is that? It's because programming. You know, 1980, 1979, you still needed a dad or a husband to buy a mortgage. So, like, there is programming out there that we've had to deal with. But you know what? It's 2024. Let go of it. And money isn't evil. And it's okay to talk about it.
Yeah.
And you're okay. You deserve to make money and pay the bills. That's what.
Absolutely.
But, oh my gosh, this has been amazing. And I probably need more life coaching with you because, you know, we all still have our money issues.
we all need. Yeah. I always have a coach. Like, honestly, like it's just, you know, self-awareness.
Amazing. But tell our audience, we're going to put it in the show notes, but wrap up and just tell us how we can find you. I love you talking about your coaching and what different programs you offer.
Yeah.
Because it's been amazing to chat with you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm basically Renee Bowen across the board, you know, website, Instagram, on TikTok, I'm a Renee _Bowen. Yeah, so I'm pretty easy to find and I'm pretty active on Instagram. So, you know, if you want to DM me, that's great. I do have a podcast as well called Tried and True with a Dash of Woo, which is the melding of strategy and magic, because that's basically who I am. and what I believe that we sort of need, to integrate both to live fulfilled lives. So it's a mix of like solo and guest episodes. And I run group coaching, group programs for photographers. I also do one-on-one coaching. And so you can find all of that info on my website and Instagram.
All right. Thank you so much for being here. It's been amazing. I could probably talk to you all day.
Yeah, same. No, thanks so much for having me. This has been awesome.